So welcome back, everyone. Our first day of class today. This is visual theory, and we won't be doing videos for every class, but kicking off here today, just a few pointers. First assignment in the packet will be a landscape assignment, and I'll be looking at a few of these photographs in just a minute. We'll be giving the assignment sheets out on the day of the class, so you won't be seeing those ahead of time. We'll come back to this sheet in just a minute, and the one thing you will need to do right at the beginning is complete your syllabus. And so here's the syllabus. It's available on Blackboard. You'll need to go through, read, and just check the acknowledgement that you've received and understood what's expected of you, which is basically to check into class at the beginning of class every day that there is a class, and respond to that email. And then your evaluation, this is how your grade will be calculated, the same as we've done previously. 70% of your final grade will come from assignments, 10% from participation, and your final exam or final test 20% of that final grade. And of course, for the exam, you need to keep up with the course material that will be sending out, and all of that. There'll be a course review right at the end of the course to recap. But there's a lot of material to go through in this course as well, and so it's going to be important that you keep up and make sure that you understand the material as we go through. It's a standard syllabus. There's nothing new here or particularly different, but please have a look through and make sure that you click the acknowledgement box on that. Okay, bear with me. I've got to find my other document for today that's buried down here somewhere. Here we go. Visual theory, the overview. And the class, Monday and Wednesday, 12:45 until 5. The critical time is 12:45. I'll be sending out an email at 12:45. I need you to hit got it straight away on that email so that I know that you're on task. And at that point, you'll be on your own to complete the work and make sure that it's delivered by the deadline date, and that will be given each day. Week one, this is where we are. No class yesterday or 2 days ago, but today, Wednesday, our first class, introduction, syllabi, we've just looked at that, and our first assignment, our landscape assignment. This coming Monday is Memorial Day, so no need to worry about checking in on Memorial Day, but next Wednesday, you do need to check in, and we'll be talking about color. There's quite a lot of emphasis in the course about color, both from a technical and a creative point of view. So we'll be talking about things like color management. Our definition of color management is the management of color from capture to output. We capture color on our camera, we output either digitally or to print, and making sure that we keep color consistent throughout the process is a part of what this course is all about. Lens design. We'll be thinking about how a lens is constructed, and it may at times feel like I'm teaching you to be lens designers, but really we're thinking, what do you need to know as photographers, and trying to keep it practical. When you're going to purchase a lens, what technical things do you need to be aware of, and just practically the build quality of a lens. Is it going to be robust enough to stand professional use? On the 3rd of June, we're going to be talking about our nighttime and moon assignment, and then the full moon is on the 5th, on that Friday. And so once that moon is gone, you're not going to be able to do this assignment. There'll be about 5 or 6 days where you could shoot. Full moon is on the Friday, but it's not going to be the only day that you can shoot. So if the weather's bad, there's going to be a window in there, but you will need to plan. And if you don't get that done, then that's going to be a hit on your final grade. So just be aware that that assignment is timed to fit in with the full moon that will be available. And nighttime nocturnal photography is really, really amazing. There's some technical classes down here, the other assignments that are due down here, and your assignment due date box is down at the bottom. You can use this just to check when you've shot it and check when you've delivered it. I would print out a hard copy of this so that you can physically write on this and keep up with all of your work as you go through. As examples today, I'm going to use some photographs taken by John Martin, some amazing photography. Well, nighttime photography he's done as well. We'll come back to that a bit later, but landscape photography in particular. And What I think I'll do is look at the assignment sheet, and then we'll come back and look at some of these photographs and see how they fulfilled the assignment as on the assignment sheet. So this is the assignment sheet, 112201, Landscape and Nature assignment. You're to produce landscape and nature photographs with reference to the items listed below. And I love this quote from Ansel Adams: "My approach to photography is based on my belief in the aspects of grandeur and minutiae all about us." And I think when you look at Ansel Adams' work, we can really see that that is what he captures. So 10 things to consider. Rule of thirds should be very familiar, but that proportional divide with tonality within the image. It may not be a literal horizon line between the earth and the sky, but there will be a dominant amount of visual weight, and we need to make sure that that is fairly balanced in our photograph. Foreground, background, and a place to stand. There needs to be something in the foreground of the image. There needs to be something in the background of the image. And a place to stand, well, is there a sense that you're being invited to be a part of that landscape photograph? I'll just click back to a couple of these images. John's image here. This foreground really invites us to be a part of the image, and this bush here almost looks like an animal leaning over the ledge looking out. And we'll do some Photoshop work on this image in a minute just to kind of enhance a little bit. Another shot. These were taken in Iceland. These are my photographs taken in Iceland. But a place to stand, this foreground area here is designed to give a sense that you could easily just step in to the photograph. And quite different from a picture like this, where I think it's a dramatic photograph, but there is no place to stand here. And by saying a place to stand, I'm not saying you have to do this in every image, but I think if there is a sense that you can be drawn into an image, that can be a really cool thing. This picture from John, again, John Martin, a place to stand, well, it invites me to walk along that ridgeline. And I think that's what we're talking about here as well. A central point of interest, is there something that we specifically go to look at? Is it a tree? Is it a bush? Is it something specific? But also being able to see structure in the random. Shadows, clouds, tonality is a part of the challenge of landscape photography. A photograph like this, it's very random, but there is structure here. And if we look at the part of the glacier through here, the bulk of this weight of the lighter area here starts to allow us to build structure around that. And likewise here, really, really simple photograph. But we have a structure that's been created off on the right-hand side here. Structure in the random. It's a real challenge of landscape photography, but if you can tune into that, that's going to be really important. We've spoken about this before, but shapes are not necessarily solid objects. Shadows are shapes, clouds are shapes. Water and the movement of water, and especially if there's white bubbles, is constantly moving, but in our photograph that water that is constantly moving will form a solid shape in time, and so clocking that and being aware of it is really important. Light itself can create shadows and bright areas which we can as photographers think of as solid shapes. There are going to be technical choices to consider. Focusing, where are we going to focus? Hyperfocal distance was traditionally a focus point that landscape photographers would use, but also in cameras where there was no focusing mechanism, the lens was a fixed focus lens. It would be focused on what was known as the hyperfocal distance. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about that as a technical breakdown, but in practical terms, when you're doing landscape photography, probably focusing in an object or something that is about a third of the depth in to the image will be the place to go. And especially if we're stopping down our aperture to maximize on our depth of field, if we focus on something closer to the frame rather than further away, we're going to end up with a better result. You can consider your shutter speed, and if you're doing motion blur with moving water, for example, a slightly slower shutter speed is going to render some really beautiful results. 1/10 of a second is a break point for me very often with photographing water. There's a little bit of movement in the water without it becoming really cloudy and almost transparent. If you want to do something like that, a 5-second exposure plus, and you can adjust your ISO accordingly to capture that, bringing your ISO way down if you can. In addition, an ND or neutral density filter will bring down or reduce the amount of light getting into the camera and allow you to use a faster shutter speed. But don't worry too much if you don't have access to a neutral density filter. There's a lot that can be done just by reducing the ISO. And depth of field, very often maxing out on your depth of field is going to be the way to go. So stopping down, but the sweet spot, as it's known in a lens, is going to be where you're going to get the best optical results as well. And so when you're stopping down, if your lens goes to f22, maybe try it at f16 or f11. If it's an f2.8 lens, stop it down one stop from that, f4, f5.6. And between f5.6 and f11 is going to get your best optical quality out of the lens. We'll come back and talk further about that in our lens design part of this course, but that's going to be an important thing to come back to. Consider the focal length. Is it going to be a wide angle or a telephoto lens that you're going to choose? Think about the time of day and the direction and color of the light. First thing in the morning, it's really, really cool. The light is really cold. There's, it's almost monochromatic, but when the light is just coming up, and the same at the end of the day. But it will go from cool to pinkish to a warm orange yellowy glow before it settles down into a full spectrum natural daylight. Consider man-made structures, and especially power lines. I'm a stickler for this and would really prefer that there are no man-made structures in a landscape photograph. If there's no way of getting them out, then have them as a feature in the actual image. Color and infrared, think about color in your images as well, and that can be a compositional tool in its own right, and we'll come back and we'll talk further about that later on. Infrared, you can get a camera that's adjusted for infrared. Well, you can, but you're not going to have access to that. But there are infrared filters that you can play with as well. I'm rushing now because time's running out on this video, but what I want you to do is take 6 photographs but provide 12 for grading. You're going to do a black and white conversion on the same 6 images. So we'll be able to see the same 6 in both color and black and white. I'd like you to deliver a contact sheet with 12 images on, and then choose just one image that is your favorite image. Please do not deliver me all 12 images on Blackboard. All I need is the contact sheet and the one image for grading. All right, we'll just flick through a couple of these images while I've got a couple of minutes left. So a wider angle shot, a foreground, structure in the random. Try and really feel your way around the scene that you're looking at and become very aware of the shadow and detail areas within that image. If I look down at my feet on that glacier in Iceland, this is what I saw everywhere. The thing is melting and the water is running into the ocean. And there may be some really interesting detail shots that you can get. This picture fascinated me. It was like somebody had taken a scalpel to the earth, and if you look closely at this area of the picture here, it's almost like a hand, and if I do a magnifier on that, it's almost like drips of water dropping off the fingers of this hand. It was quite remarkable, but nature is remarkable, and you'll probably be amazed at the things you can find and see. I've not done everything that I was planning to do in this video. Time's up. But there are many things that you can do, and just have at it, have fun, email me any questions that you have, and we're looking forward to a great semester with some great photography that we're going to see the results of your work through the semester. All right, that's it. I better shut up.